in some other geography. Very soon we will also see in India as well. And then the contribution of frauds on the card not present channel, which is the e-commerce channel today, it's as high as 78% in the country today. In India, globally as well, it's close to 80%. Which used to be the other way around. Probably card not present used to contribute 10-20% of the frauds. It's reversed in the last decade. The third part is government. When I mean government, it can be law enforcement, it can be regulator, it can be the finance ministry of the government itself. They are looking at payment space very closely. It's because of the technology innovation happening in that space, one. The second is governments also want penetration, electronification of transactions, right? Financial inclusion. They rely on this. Today, mobile phone has penetrated more than anything else in the country. More than an account being opened, more than a card being delivered, mobile phone is available to everybody. So they want to make use of that phone to be a mode of payment. How can you use that to do a fund transfer? How can you use that to get a loan? How can you use that to do a payment transaction, be it a merchant transaction or be it a P2P transaction, whatever be the transaction is completing on. So governments are leaning towards this and also placing some mandates, right, on the security space, especially. They just take India as an example. We have seen a regulator proactively looking into the payment space, started with chip issue, started with the second factor authentication. In fact, India is the leading regulator in introducing second factor authentication for card not present transaction. They did it way back in 2009. Then they started with chip issuance. They secured the infrastructure by making EMB, upgrading it to EMB. Now they've also asked ATMs to be upgraded to EMB. So we have a very proactive regulator who are leaning in and putting mandates to ensure security is taken care of it. From a visa perspective, we also see domestic payment schemes coming in. We also, probably India has NPCI, we have other markets, the other markets which I manage, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal. There are local domestic schemes which are cropping up. So our objective is to find out how do we work together. Probably Bharat was there, I don't know whether he's here till now, but Bharat would have spoken about NPCI and all that. Today we work together, myself, Bharat Panchal or Dilip Asbe, whoever it is from NPCI. We work together to secure the ecosystem. How do we work together to ensure, because at the end of the day, it's a customer confidence which is more important when it comes to security. A customer can use my card on a domestic network or it comes to my network. End of the day, the consumer is a consumer. He's holding a Visa card, he's holding a RuPay card, or he's holding the same card used in both the networks as well. We have multiple combinations. But when it comes to security, we work together to ensure the security aspect is taken care, and we drive certain national level initiatives. We have a risk council in the country. Myself, Bharat, and all the networks, be it MasterCard, Visa, NPCI, we work together. We sit on the IPRC board to discuss about national level initiatives. So we work together on when it comes to domestic payment schemes. I'll just quickly run through this. Most of you know about it. We introduced the EMB chip card, and it's over a period of last 10 years. We have seen that, including US, they migrated last year. They are in the process of migration, but the mandate has kicked in last year. So I'll not spend much time on EMB. We have seen this. I'll spend some time on what's going to be the future. This is the last slide which have, last but one. I'll just spend 5 minutes on this slide. How are we going to build layers of security in our future security roadmap, right? There are 4 things which I want to talk about. First and foremost is devaluing the data. How do we devalue the data? We need to make the data irrelevant for the cyber crooks. Today they are looking for data because they can use the data, either recreate a card, or they can use the same information of card number, PIN, or the second factor authentication to reuse as a customer. So we are bringing, EMB is a perfect example, right? I said the story. We introduced probably 10, 12 years back. Over the last 12 years, we've got the counterfeit skimming fraud percentage from 80% to 20%. It's a perfect example of devaluing the data. What does the chip mean? You read the chip is in an encrypted form. It travels from the terminal till it's the issuer host. It's a complete encrypted data. Even if somebody gets hold of the data, it's useless. He can't reproduce or counterfeit, skim a card using a chip. So that's a perfect example of devalue data. Is that enough? Probably no, because the payment form factor is changing. Today you can even do a payment without a physical card, right? I can use my mobile. NFC payments are coming in. Your QR code based payments are coming in. Is PayWave coming in. So the form factor is completely different. When EMB was launched because most of the frauds were happening and most of the transactions were also happening as card on terminal. Today it's not the case. So we are thinking of the next level of devaluing the data, which is called tokenization. We want to make the data tokenized from the merchant point to the issuer host. So even if it's available for cyber crooks, it doesn't mean anything to him. That's what we call as tokenization. The card number doesn't travel. It gets tokenized from the origination point. Currently, Apple Pay is an example. Probably it's not in India. We have done it in US. Apple Pay is a perfect, it works on tokenized data. You tap the phone, you make a Apple Pay payment through the Apple phone, it's in a tokenized form. Even if somebody gets into the merchant domain or on transit and takes the data out, it's of no use. So that's one of our strategy. How do we tokenize the entire payment data ecosystem? It's going to be a long way ahead. It's not going to be an overnight story saying, okay, we've introduced tokenization, every bank will follow it, every merchant will follow it. No. Probably as a short-term process, we are looking at encryption. How do we do a point-to-point encryption? There are multiple players in the ecosystem. It's not just merchant to bank. How do we, every player in the ecosystem has to do an encryption mode. That's probably a short-term strategy over the next 5 years or probably even 10 years. Till we get a complete tokenized solution available. So that's the priority number one in terms of building a security roadmap. The second is protecting the current data. Having said that, tokenization, EMB probably still will take years to achieve that. Till that time, how do we protect the data? The current data which is available with multiple ecosystem. PCI DSS, the payment card industry data security standard is paramount. Every player in the ecosystem must adhere to PCI DSS. So that is the second strategy. Probably, see, you might even say some of the data breaches are happening on entities which are PCI DSS certified, right? Which is a known truth, which is available in public domain as well. But when you go back, we also participate in a lot of forensic investigations which are conducted by these entities. When we go back and check what happened, why a PCI DSS entity is being compromised. People need to understand, and I know you are all InfoSec professionals, you understand this much better. PCI DSS is a point-in-time certification, right? People get certified at that point of time when the audit was done. But post the audit, people change the process, people leave away with default passwords getting used, they upgrade the software, they don't. So there are a lot of things which come up which could have been avoided because the PCI DSS is an annual renewal process. In between, there are another 300 days. Probably during those 50-60 days of audit, they comply with PCI DSS norms, but when the audit is completed, the remaining 300 days, probably they flout some of these rules and regulation, which has resulted in a data compromise. So the second most important aspect which we are looking at is how do we protect the data. So PCI DSS is the fundamental thing which we need to do today. There are a lot of other InfoSec professionals know it better. There are a lot of other tools available to protect the data, which some of them are using it. It's a multi-layered security. As I said, multi-layered security is the answer. It's not one simple solution which is an answer for everything happening in the payment ecosystem. It's like our own, I used to say this example in most of the forums, right? When we want to get into a new home, what do we look at? First and foremost is security, right? We might go and look for a friendly neighbor. We might look for security. If a friendly neighbor is not available, probably we'll look at technology, CCTVs or security locks or alarm systems. So all this is what we try to secure ourselves using multiple layers. Just one will not do. Just locking, of course, every day you lock the door, but that doesn't mean you're secure inside the house, right? We look at multiple layers of security. When we do it for our individual security, similarly, payment also needs a multi-layer of security. The third one is harnessing the data. As I said, data is very, very crucial today in the entire payment ecosystem. How do we use this information to identify abnormal patterns? How do we, as I said today, most of the transactions, 65-70% of the transactions are originating from handheld device. How do we secure just 2 minutes, I'll close it. How do we get that information made use. We need to identify whether the transaction is originating from a genuine customer or a identity theft customer, right? Somebody has taken over his identity and doing the transaction. That's what we need to identify today. How do we make use of these information which is available as smartphone device identification or an IP address or the country of origination? There are multiple data today available. So how do financial institutions need to use this data to identify abnormal pattern? That's where harnessing data is a crucial role. The fourth is empowering the customers. End of the day, customer is the guy who will know whether the transaction is genuine or fraudulent. How do we empower these customers? One is education. Today, as you know, India, we have seen most of the frauds are originating due to wishing calls, right? Customers have been getting calls saying we are calling from so-and-so. We just probably half an hour before Mali spoke about a call center theft, which is no, it's not related to payments, probably it's related to revenue tax payments in US. But that's how payment ecosystem is also facing a similar trend. People get calls, they voice out the passwords, transaction gets disputed at a later date. But how do we empower him? An SMS alert, customer education is important. People need to know that you should not voice out that password. So we need to create that awareness. It's an ongoing process. It's not just one day process. So I'll end with, I think I've ran out of time, so I'll just end with saying, in the name of convenience and security, data plays a vital role, and how do we make use of the data to devalue, protect, and harness data is extremely important. So thank you very much, CSI, for this opportunity. Any questions, you can rise it. Probably, I think we are running out of time, so you can. I'm here for some time. You can come and talk to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would request Sandeep Chintawar, sir, to felicitate Shivakumar, sir.
Thank you, sir. The next topic is data lakes, enterprise model, analytics and business intelligence architecture. The speaker is a person with experience in variety of fields. He is Mr. Henry P. He is an author, TOGAF, CIMP, CIPM, IPM, SAP certified professional person. Henry, sir.
Whatever you have seen right now was of the data warehouse, okay? Right now, I'm going to complete in 5 minutes, that's all, Hadoop, okay? I'll try to do the implementation of a new technology that's going to change the whole scenario. As of now, whatever you have seen is of about the era what you have right now, that is traditional approach. What I'm going to just show you is something is called the Spark for the technology people. For other people, it's about real-time analytics about that. Okay, I'm Henry. Okay, we live in the world of amazing sharing of informations, and I think everyone knows about this, right? Yes or no? Yeah, and everyone talks about, I have seen that most of the time people are saying about WhatsApp. You're more worried about updating the message on the WhatsApp than listening to the people around here, correct? The third thing is about the politicians and the CA and CIOs are more interested in updating in the Twitter than thinking about something else. So this is all about information, okay? But we cannot ignore this. If you ignore this, you are like this, okay? If you do not ignore this, you are like this. So this is the difference that you can ignore or you cannot ignore. So now, what is the approach? What is the approach that we have right now is this approach. This is what you have already seen for the last 1.5 days, okay? So the new approach that we are proposing is called the data lake. So I'll just try to jump it out here. Hadoop. So now I'll just give a brief difference between the traditional and the new approach. In the traditional approach is what you do is that you collect information, but before you dump it in a repository in your data warehouse, what you do is that you transform it. So that means you want to listen what you want to listen. You are not worried about what exactly the data is all about. What you think about is that I want to listen the bad things or the good thing about a person. I'll just only transform the data and dump it. Then you started doing analysis on top of that because your data is already transformed. That means you have already converted the way you like to do it. Then you started doing an insight of the data and created a business decision about that. That is where the problem with the traditional way of data warehousing. So now with the advance of the new technology like Hadoop, what it does is that you can just dump your data in the raw format without doing any ETL transaction and dump it out there. Then you started analyzing your data depending upon the raw data, not on the transform data. That means you are working on the direct source of the data. This is the only difference that you have with the traditional and you have with the data lakes. So just to put a line about what exactly is a data lake all about when you need to go to your corporate back and saying that I have learned something about a data lake in the CSI, if you have to explain in a very plain language, is that it's a repository of the data which is on the schema on the read. That means I will define the data structure or the modeling of data at the time of analysis, okay? Not like your traditional way where you transform and dump it. You dump the data saying the customer information and the transaction data. Later on you realize that I don't have a data to view at the transactional level. Then you say, you talk to your IT guy saying that I want the information of this customer data. Then what do? You go back to your IT guy. Then IT guy says that I don't know the relationship. It will take me 10 days for me. So now you are depending on your traditional way of doing that. So with this data lake, you spend more on the operation in your analytics, the whole purpose of your enterprise warehouse. What happened right now is you are focusing more on the ETL. So the last slide for me is that I'll explain you what is an architecture that you need to do it. The data lake is not an implementation. If you are coming from the enterprise architecture background, this is a conceptual model. What we do right now is that we have a security problem, plug in the security. That's what we are doing it. I'm listening from the morning, we have a security problem, install the semantic endpoint. We have the mail problem, the information has been leaked out, search for a DLP. Then you said, we have a spam, search for the spam gateway. This is what everyone does it. So now this data lake is that I'm giving you a holistic purpose. Right now what we do is that I want the data from the CRM, pump in. Tomorrow I said I want the data from my customer transaction, dump in. Later on you don't know what to do it. So now what the data lake saying is that I will provide a mechanism of dumping all your data sources that you're seeing here. Okay, and it is the way it's done. It's like this. I'm here right now. I have seen that most of the people might have already closed seeing this slide itself because it seems to be quite complicated for the technical people. And it's quite interesting for the architecture people. So now the moment you close it, you'll say, oh, it looked like something, 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 and it was lacking like something, something. Then the business is also, decision is also in something only. Then it may fail or may not fail. Unluckily, if you read the one article today, the Indian era of software is going to be doomed in 17 years. It's a 17 years, and it is already predicted that Infosys is going to fail, Wipro is going to fail, and it has already come in the paper in Singapore saying